All right. Hello and welcome to the sixth part of this RWBY fanfiction reading, I Scream by TheNeopolitan. So we're on chapter 20 out of 34? So, oh boy. We still got a little bit to go, but we're going to try to get through 4 chapters, hopefully, in this one. To make it a little bit easier, we're just going to get going. So, after I'd cried out enough tears to drown myself, I pulled myself together. I wiped the wetness off of my face with the bottom of my pink tank top, making me realize that I was still wearing my pajama tank and my ice cream shorts. Thankfully, the small bag that I had grabbed had my scroll and my gym key. I walked to the city's workout gym that was open 24/7. The man working there said nothing about my choice of clothing when I walked in. It wasn't his job to ask questions as long as the people coming in had a gym membership. Flashed him my key when I walked in and walked over to my locker. It wasn't a big deal at all. The gym itself was great for staying in shape. There were coffee and snacks and there were showers, all for a small monthly fee. I had a few memberships to local gyms. They were great for things like this. I received a copy of my usual outfit from my locker and took a shower. After I had changed, I took a cup of coffee and a breakfast bar and left. As I walked down the mostly empty street, I pulled out my scroll and looked through it. Wolf and the others had tried to get a hold of me multiple times. I hesitated, but called Wolf anyway. He picked up in an instant, almost as if he had been waiting for me to call every second of the few hours that I had been gone. His face appeared on my screen, looking tired and worn out with dark circles under his eyes. "Neo," he said with relief. His voice was rough and exhausted. "Are you okay?" He looked like a nervous wreck because of me, and he was asking if I was okay. Guilt chalked it. What? Okay. My throat, and I was only able to nod that yes, I was okay. "Should I come get you?" he asked, unsuccessfully trying to hold back a yawn. I shook my head no as I kept walking. "Where are you going?" he asked. I was silent until I figured it out. "To see the librarian." I didn't even need to nod yes before he was saying, "I'll be right there." "No," I said, speaking for the first time. My voice came out much sharper than I had intended. "No, I've got this. You get some sleep. I'll call you when I'm done." "Okay, if you say so," he replied, still sounding unsure. "Goodbye, Wolf," I told him. He said goodbye as well and told me to be safe before I ended my call and slipped my scroll into my pocket. I looked farther down the street, admiring the sun beginning to rise. I took a deep breath to mentally ready myself. It was time to see the librarian. I began thinking of what I should say to him, how I could bribe him to give me the information that I needed. If I hadn't been so focused on that, maybe I could have realized that I was being followed. From the outside, the mansion looked pretty cool, but in the sense that it was an older building. A few shingles were missing off the roof. Grim had built up on the windows and made them appear foggy, and some of the walls' stone had begun to chip off. I made my way up the steps and pulled open the glass door. The space that I walked into was open with 3 directions that I could take. The most obvious way to take would be straight ahead. There was a circular desk made of light-colored wood. The area was brightly lit. This was the public part of the library. There anyone could walk in and check out a book. To the left was a small hallway leading to some nicely decorated bathrooms. No one would ever guess the kind of secrets were hidden underneath. I took the staircase to the left. It was rather narrow and curved downwards into the wall. Anyone just passing by probably wouldn't notice. About 4 steps down, there was a large wooden door with a private property sign hanging on it. I twisted the black metal handle and pulled the door open before stepping inside. When the door closed behind me, the spiral staircase spiraling downwards became poorly lit and hard to see. There were a few dim lights along the wall, but they were spaced far apart and some of them flickered as if they were to go out any second. I touched the stone wall on my right, using it for guidance as I descended. It was damp and cold, feeling even more so than a basement. My heels clicked loudly against the stone and echoed down the stairs. I eventually reached the bottom of the stairs and paused there for a moment. In front of me was literally a maze of bookshelves, and it changed every day. I sighed and walked into it. The bookshelves were tall and at least triple my height. They were made of dark wood and were filled with an old book smell. The area down here was about as brightly lit as the staircase. I could tell that there was a brighter light in the middle of the room and knew that would be where the librarian was. Which they spelt librarian wrong there. I only got stuck a couple of times, but I kept my cool. Librarian wouldn't approve of a temper tantrum, and I knew he was watching. I knew I could just jump over the bookshelves, but he wouldn't have liked that either. So, you finally made it through, a man said in an almost broad tone. I walked around the lady bookshelf and came face to face with the librarian. The librarian sat at his desk with his fingers intertwined and an amused look on his face. I stood up straighter and approached the desk with confidence. That in itself was a dangerous line to walk. Not enough confidence would bore him, but too much would anger him. "Ah, Miss Neopolitan, it has been quite some time since I've seen you last," he said with a grin. I tilted my head and smirked. "Always so talkative, what can I help you with?" he chuckled. "I need some information about a few people I used to work for," I told him, almost as if I didn't really need it. This wouldn't have anything to do with you switching sides and working for Ozpin, would it? Although a simple agreement to help you out of jail didn't necessarily mean good, now does it? I guess that makes you a white rogue for now. My eyes widened ever so slightly. How did he know about that already? Does news about me... What? News about me has spread, has it? I asked, walking around my desk, acting bored, like I already knew the answer to my question. So then people would think that I got any new information from Ozpin and his spies. This was a weak ploy, and I was aware that he knew it. If Ozpin had to recruit me, then he and his spies knew nothing. Still, my attempt to hide my desperation amused the librarian, and the older man laughed loudly before sarcastically adding, "Oh, sure, no one would ever guess that I helped you. Ha, really, where else could you possibly go?" Crap, I was running out of ideas. What should I do? I had very little money, not nearly enough to satisfy the librarian's greed. I knew nothing new or interesting to trade. I couldn't even offer to break into anything to steal information, now that I was pretending to be a white knight. If Ozpin caught me breaking into anywhere, I shouldn't, our deal would be off, and this would be for nothing. Just then a soft creaking noise came from upstairs. Someone was trying to make as little sound as possible to sneak down here. "Are they here with you?" the librarian asked. I shook my head no, but he already knew that. He closed his eyes and listened. The librarian had scary good hearing. 3 of them, each of them holding loaded guns of the same type. Clearly they're looking for trouble, so if they're not here with you, then it's assumed they're here for you. I glanced up at the ceiling, knowing that 3 was a handful, but they were still a good distance away. "Here's a bit of information I'll give you free of charge," the man said, leaning closer to me, as if to share a secret. "That Cinder Woman that your boss worked for has put a bounty on your head. I have no doubt that those 3 are her pawns." "We had better negotiate quickly then," I told him, switching the sides of my brown and pink eyes. "What did you have in mind?" he asked curiously. I pressed my hands on his desk, leaned forward, and pitched him my idea. "I have all of the muscle that I'm going to need with Ozpin and his friends behind me. I just need locations and information. You give me that, Ozpin and company take down Cinder and her minions, and while all that happens, I break in and steal all of her information that Cinder has. Then I delete the source so that you and only you have the information." He pursed his lips and thought about it, though I knew I had him hooked. "There's no way to know for certain that this would work out. But you know me," I told him with determination, "and you know that I can do this." "That's an offer I couldn't refuse," the librarian grinned, but my heart sank. I knew there was a but coming. The old man sighed and said, "But I'm sorry, my dear, that is some information that I do not have." The smirk fell off my face. The librarian didn't know? What was I going to do now? Not only did I run away from the school this morning, but I'm going to have to go back empty-handed. This was it. My deal with Osborne would be over. The librarian began to laugh. Actually laugh. I narrowed my eyes at him. At least he wasn't mad, but I was still screwed. Then I heard it. The three people had made it down the stairs into the maze of books. Would you like to know something else, Miss Neopolitan? He asked me. I arched an eyebrow at him, wondering what he would say. I'd imagine if they were sent to get you, that they have to report to someone. They would have to report to someone important, wouldn't they? My eyes widened in a bit of shock and switched colors and excitement. That was it. All I had to do was take out these guys and work my way up the chain. I grinned at the older man and gave him a small nod, thanking him for his help. I then disappeared into the maze. As I walked, I looked up to see round mirrors that all connected to each other. This was how the librarian could see everything. I carefully checked around the corner of the bookshelf and saw one of the men. He was taller than me, like many other people. He had tan skin and wore a white fang mask and uniform. He and his friends had split up, probably hoping to get through the maze quicker. I rushed him faster than he could react. I swept my leg at his feet, pulling them out from under him and tripping him forward. What? I don't even know what that's supposed to say. I don't even have a clue. Anyways, he, shifted in surprise, and his arms flailed out instinctively to catch himself. I caught one of his arms and twisted behind him, locking it. I normally would have used this to push him through a bookcase, but then I realized whose home I was in. The librarian wouldn't like it if I broke anything. Instead, I shoved the faunus to the ground and kicked him in the head with enough force to knock him out. The two that he had come with heard him screaming and came running. They came at me at the same time and fired shots at me, all of which I blocked with my umbrella and sent them ricocheting into the ceiling, which the librarian didn't seem to mind. Realizing the bullets wouldn't work, the White Fang members switched them to close ranged weapons, a mace and a hand axe, and charged me. One of them was a few feet taller than me. He wielded the mace and had giant muscular arms. He had slower movements, but ones I definitely didn't want to get hit with. The other was only a few inches taller and was a girl. She had quick movements like me, but not quite as strong. As long as I didn't get hit with the blade, I'd be fine. Both of them were fairly experienced, but no match for me. I quickly dodged attacks from the big guy and hit the girl with ease. It wasn't even as intense as a practice match for me, and debated what would be the best way to deal with them. Did we need all three? How was I going to get them out of here? Would my teleportation hold up long enough to get the big guy back to the school? As I debated, the big guy missed an attack on me and smashed a display case behind me. Everything moved in slow motion. The glass shattered as the mace hit it full force. I just barely glimpsed at the object inside. It was a picture in black and white. The photo was of a man, his wife, and a little girl. My brain hardly had time to process that the father was the librarian and that this was his deceased family before the mace smashed into that as well and sent it flying. I didn't have much time to react before disaster struck. I finished my attack, kicking the girl so hard that it knocked her back close to the first guy. She cracked her head on the stone floor and went limp. I finished my kick and cartwheeled over to the unconscious two, making it out of the way just before it had happened. The librarian grew enraged the moment that he realized what happened. A bright light flashed in it as he activated his own semblance ability to grow to massive size, to the point where I was about the size of his forearm. He stood up and crouched over the bookcases. What? He was gigantic. Even though it's literally not even close, though he was gigantic, he moved incredibly fast. In one swift motion, he brought his hands together as if clapping the guy's head. The faunus head exploded, blood flying everywhere. One of my eyes turned white and the other pink in pure terror. Before the librarian could open his hands, I bent down, grabbed the other two faunus by the back of their jackets, and teleported away. Using up most of my aura, I was able to get them to the police station, who drove the unconscious White Fang members to the school. Okay. That's chapter 21. Chapter 22. Exhausted from using so much of my aura, it took a little more effort to lift up my head and walk into the library. Both Team Rainbow and Team RWBY were waiting for me. "So you're alive," Wolf grinned teasingly, but I could tell that he really had been worried about me. His red ears lifted up and his tail wagged eagerly. "We were worried," Rach said calmly as they came over and hugged me. Team RWBY glanced at each other awkwardly. Yang glared at us, deciding that they must be almost as traitorous as I was. The image of my teammates' dead bodies scattered around me caused me to flinch back and pull out of their embrace. "You're late," the Ice Queen snapped, crossing her arms and sticking her nose in the air. "Did you find anything?" Blake asked was that sympathy in her eyes? "My informant didn't know anything," I said softly. He'd taken his drink. Okay. "So you don't have anything?" Yang asked me with attitude. I ignored her and turned to the others, saying, "It appears that my old business associates," here I scoffed at my name for them, "have placed a bounty on my head. Fortunately, this worked out okay, because 3 White Fang members came out of hiding and after me. 2 of them in the other room. Husband is giving us 2 hours to interrogate them before Ironwood gives them to professionals." "Only 2 hours?" Bolt asked in surprise. For interrogation, that wasn't much time at all." "What happened to the 3rd? Yang asked, crossing her arms and looking me over closely. There was an unfortunate event," I replied, mentally cringing as the memory of his head splatting the librarian's hands like an insect flashed in my mind. Yang scoffed. Even without her saying anything, I could tell that she thought that I killed the other man. "We should be going," I said, turning on my heel and leading the others away. Yang followed reluctantly behind. The hallways grew darker and had more turns. These were usually set aside for the general and his men to use as offices, but they had shut off a section for our 2 teams to use. "Through there," I said, indicating to a door ahead. Yang brushed past me. She bumped my side roughly and scowled down at me before yanking open the door. The rest of the teams and I followed her in. It was a tiny room with 2 doors in it. Each of those doors led to an interrogation room with one of the White Fang members inside. "It's kind of cramped," Wolf said as we squished inside. "That's why there's these, so we can watch from the hallway," I replied, holding up tablets. I passed them out and led the teams back out to the hall. "How do we want to do this? Let me in there and I'll beat the answers out of them," Yang said confidently, crashing her gauntlets together. "We should let Rach go first," I told the group. "I do have experience with this sort of thing," Rach admitted. No one decided to ask how. Team RWBY probably assumed that her parents did something like this. We all agreed and Rach went into each of the rooms and traced the arcane mark on their heads, while we watched from the hallway. "Can I talk to you?" Blake asked Yang, sounding a bit unsettled. Yang nodded and Blake led her down one of the hallways. Shortly afterwards, Rach came out to speak with us. "The Faunus girl is going to have to be tricked into giving us what we want. No amount of scaring her will do us any good. The guy, on the other hand, we may be able to frighten things out of him." "On it," Bolt grinned eagerly, stepping in with her. I sighed and let my feet wander. I didn't realize that I had taken the same way that Yang and Blake had until I could hear their voices. "Yang, you don't have to be so mean to her," Blake was saying. "She tried to kill me, Blake. She has killed other people. She's done terrible things, and it's our job to stop people like her," Yang growled. "I get that, Yang, but we don't know anything besides that. You don't know what made her do those things. You don't know anything but what people have told you about her," Blake pleaded. "Why are you protecting her?" Yang snapped loudly. "Because I've been her," Blake snapped back. Then she bit her lip and her features softened. "I've done equally terrible things because I thought they were for the right reasons. And just like her, I've tried to do the right things, even though..." What? Even though I know it will never make up for the wrong things. The only difference is that not many people know who I am or what I've done. A tear trailed down her face, which broke through Yang's rage. The blonde sighed and hugged her cat friend and said, I don't think I'll ever forgive her. I will not trust her, but for you I will try, and I promise to be nicer. Thanks, Yang, Blake told her friend, wiping her eyes and cheek. Yang grinned. Okay. Yang grinned and then said, I'm going to check on the others. Stephanos' girl nodded before Yang walked away. Quickly and quietly moved into a nearby doorway so she wouldn't see me. When she passed, I left my spot and went to Blake. Neo, she greeted. I looked down at my shoes trying to find the words to say. Thank you for speaking to Yang for me. It's no problem, she assured me. It might be, I said, bringing my pink and brown eyes up to her amber ones. It's more dangerous than you know to be around me. The second that I'm done being useful, the side of light will turn on me. Even now, the side of darkness is hunting me. It's not safe to be around me. I know, she told me, understanding what it was like to fear both sides. No, you don't, I sighed, shaking my head. How did I get her to understand that I was dangerous? I'm a monster. Oh, Neo, she sighed, wrapping her arms around me in a hug, saying, No, you're not. Not anymore. I flinched away from her touch, seeing Wolf's pain-filled eyes as scary Neo pulled out his heart. How do I explain what kind of a monster I was? If I told her that I had some sort of murderous multiple personality in me, then she'd feel sorry for me. I didn't want her sympathy. I wanted her to know that I was a danger to everyone, so she could save everyone from me. You're wrong, I told her, giving her a little shove back. I am a monster. I know who you are, Blake Belladonna. I know your score, what you've done. Those are childish pranks compared to what I've done. You think we're the same? You did what you did because you thought it would make a change for the better. I did what I did for revenge and then for money. You're here trying to do the right thing. I'm here because I got caught. That's not true, she nearly shouted at me, but I could see some doubt in her eyes. That was enough for now. I just smirked at her because I was out of words. I turned on my heel and started away, leaving her to think about what I said. How would you say that? Wolf asked softly from where I had hidden before. My heart missed a beat. I wasn't used to being snuck up on, but I recovered quickly and glanced menacingly at him. Because it's true, Wolf, every word, and you would do well to remember it, I snapped harshly. He flinched back as if I had slapped him, and I walked away, passing by the others. Yang watching me closely as I kept walking. I glared at her too for good measure, my eyes filling up with tears after I looked away. Where are you going? Weiss demanded. Race is about to break them. We'll need everyone here so we can figure out what to do next. I lifted my head high and kept walking. Hey, she shouted after me, making a move to come after me. Leave her be, Bolt told her. Neo's had a rough day. I found a nearby office and broke out into silent sobs. I could hear my scary Neo voice in my head. Crying again, Neo? Pathetic. I hated snapping at Wolf like that, but it was better if he and the others stayed away from me. After this job, I was going to go far, far away. Hated to admit it, but I really cared about Wolf and my team. I was really going to miss them. You're so weak, I thought to myself. How did I let myself care for them? I should have known better. The door creaked open behind me unexpectedly. I stood up straight and tried to compose myself. Go away, Wolf, I snapped. I'm not Wolf, Yang told me, closing the door behind her. Chapter 23. I quickly wiped away any tears, composing myself, before I turned to look at Yang. She looked down at me, still standing by the doorway. For once, she wasn't glaring at me. Instead, she slightly tilted her head to the side and looked me over, trying to figure something out. Believe it or not, this made me even more uncomfortable than when she was mad at me. She crossed her arms and said calmly, I heard everything that you said to Blake and to Timber. I arched an eyebrow in surprise. How did she do that? She was too far away from Blake and I to hear normally. Plus, there was no way that she could have run from where Wolf and I were to where she was when I passed her. Image flashed in my mind of Yang roughly bumping into my side, using my left arm. I slid... What? Okay. An image flashed in my mind of Yang roughly bumping into my side. Using my left arm, I slid it down my right side until I came to a bump on my belt. Curiously, I picked it off and examined it. It matched the color of my belt, and it was flat. I wouldn't have seen it if I weren't looking for it. Yang pulled an earpiece out of her belt. I had to admit, she was smart. So she heard me tell Blake and Wolf that I was a monster. My eye color switched sides curiously as I wondered what she would do now. Are you here to fight me, Yang? I asked. Not this time, she told me with a smirk. Then what? I asked blankly, too tired for games. I have a few questions, like why would a monster warn someone that she's a monster? She asked curiously. Or seriously. To taunt her opponent, I offered without emotion. Maybe, Yang said, holding up the earpiece to emphasize what she would say next. But I heard you. You weren't taunting her for those reasons, not at first. See, in your first few words, you warned her that you were dangerous, like you cared. When you realized that wouldn't keep her away, then you taunted her. I stood there silently, wondering what she wanted from me. I was impressed. No one could read me like that. Not even Wolf when I was really tired. When I really tried? Bang wasn't done yet. You tried your best to convince her you're dangerous, that you're a monster. But why? I think it was because you're afraid. I rolled my eyes and scoffed, telling her without words, what can I possibly be afraid of? I think, Yang continued, that you're afraid of yourself, of what you can do, of what you can become. My eyes widened in surprise. How the hell could she know that? Ozpin gave us your file, your records. I read that you can become someone else when you have to. But that's still you, what you become. Yang paused and looked down at her hands. I have something like that too. It's not another person, but you've seen her. When I get so angry that my eyes turn red, I don't think straight. I lose control. Sometimes I worry that I'll get mad at RWBY or someone else that I really care about. It used to keep me up all night. Here she looked up at me. That's why you're afraid, isn't it? Losing control of this other you, that you're going to hurt someone that you care about. She walked over and put her hands on my shoulders, saying, and you do care about them, I can see it. That doesn't matter, I told her, shaking my head. It doesn't make me any less dangerous, any less of a monster. And if I lose control, that'll be lucky if all I do is kill them. Or they'll be lucky if all I do is kill them. Then clearly I can't trust you, whether you really are trying to be a good guy or not, she glared down at me. Then she changed. Her glare turned into a look of determination. She grinned down at me and rested an arm on my shoulder. So I'm not going to let you out of my sight, she winked. I stared up at her with wide eyes. She couldn't be serious. Mine switched color and I smiled softly in appreciation. I've never had anyone do something like this for me before. Come on, she said, taking my arm and dragging me out of the room. It sounds like Raish and Bolt almost got everything out of that we need from that white fang goon. Everyone was waiting out in the hallway for us. Wolf raised an eyebrow, seeing Yang pulling me behind her. I smiled at him to let him know that everything was all right. Yang? RWBY asked curiously, unsure of what was going on. It's all good, Rubes. We talked it out. Yang continued... What? Okay. Something, her younger sister, releasing me as we joined the others in sort of circle. I looked over at Blake and Wolf, unsure how to tell them that I was sorry for pushing them away. As my eyes met Blake's, closed them and smiled at me. I smiled back softly, glad that she seemed to understand. Wolf came over and bumped my side playfully, letting me know that we were okay. I grinned up at him and bumped him back. Rach looked up at us, and seeing that everyone was okay, she held out her tablet and showed us a map of Vale that had 2 red dots on it and 2 blue. One of the red dots and blue dots came together and made an oddly shaped triangle. These 2 red marks are the locations that the guy gave us, and the blue ones are what the girl gave us. Rage explained. She pointed to a red dot and a blue dot in 2 different locations. They said that this is where the White Fang headquarters were, so either they have 2 bases that they've been lied to, or one of them is a trap. She then moved her hand where a red dot and blue dot came together and said, this is the drop-off point where they were supposed to drop off Neopolitan dead or alive to collect their bounty. We split into groups, trying to make it as even as possible to scout out the areas. Wolf, RWBY, and Weiss would be taking the name... Okay. Wolf, RWBY, and Weiss would be taking what we named the red base, the red dot marking the White Fang headquarters. Blake, Raish, and Bolt would be taking the blue base, the blue dot marking White Fang headquarters. Then Yang and I will be taking the place that I was supposed to be dropped off for a bounty. I called Team Juniper as well, Weiss said. and then pointed to the map. Ren and Nora will wait here between Neo's drop-off point and Red Base. John and Pierre will wait here between the Neo drop-off and Red Base. This way they can be ready if any groups need backup. Are we all agreed? Raish said. We all nodded, and that yes, we were ready. We will leave tomorrow night. Rest up, everyone. This will not be easy. Whew. And this is probably a short chapter, but I'm not going to read it right now. We have to save that for next time. So, whoo boy. So, oh god, okay. Next time, which I don't know necessarily when that'll be, because I don't know when I'll have time to record next, but basically we'll be doing chapter 23 and a half, and then, as much as we can do further than that, maybe 2-3 more episodes after this, and I think we'll be good. I think we'll be done with this, and then it'll be on to the second part, which I don't exactly know when that'll be happening. If I could look. I believe it's Future's Sight, if I remember right. No, it's not. Oh god. Oh, it's Shatter Me. Okay, so it's a little bit in the future. Alright, whatever. So anyways, here's a sequel. It'll be happening significantly later than this, but we'll have to see what happens. It's over. We're done. Next time, I don't know. That's basically it.